So apparently, every time a new game with a beautiful protagonist is released, the discussion about how characters should look in video games resurfaces. Wuchang Fallen Feathers is just the most recent example of that. The game's been receiving overwhelmingly positive feedback, except on PC where the game is apparently having a lot of performance issues, although all of these issues are already being tackled. But still, a loud minority seems bothered by the fact that the protagonist, Bei Wuchang, is a beautiful woman. And not just beautiful, elegantly designed, confident, and feminine. And we all know this isn't new. Over the past few years, we've seen a similar pattern, not just on social media, but also in media outlets, criticizing certain games for appealing to the male gaze or objectifying women. Ironically, the same people criticizing these games are often the ones praising real women for objectifying themselves online, selling feet pics on exclusive content platforms out there, or literal bathwater to their massive male audiences. And those are the ones that are called empowered, independent, and even feminist icons. The fact is, attractive female characters in games always existed. Some of the most beloved characters from classic franchises were beautiful women, and nobody seemed to have a problem with that in the past. So why is it that now these kinds of characters are suddenly controversial, especially in mainstream media? And why are so many game studios actively avoiding attractive designs? Or worse, purposefully making their characters less attractive than they could be? Now, you might think that making a character uglier seems like a stupid decision, and that's because it is. The truth is, everyone likes beauty. Attractive people captivate both men and women. That's why the beauty and fitness industries are so massive. Being drawn to beauty is a natural human trait, and video game characters are a natural reflection of that. In fact, there's even research showing that while women say that they dislike overly sexualized or idealized designs, they'll still choose to play as those characters if given the option. The idea of certain body proportions or outfits might be seen as problematic, but in practice, they're simply more captivating than average-looking characters. And game studios know that. If sex sells, and let's be honest, it does, the most obvious design choice for developers is to create attractive characters. That doesn't mean all characters need to look like supermodels. Most will be stylized, fitting into the game's creative world and artistic vision. But yes, they will still be attractive. That's how developers get people's attention. Now, of course, a pretty face and a killer body don't make a game good on their own. Gameplay, story, and world building all matter, but eye-catching design helps draw people in, especially in a market this competitive. Beyond that, gaming is a form of escapism. It's how we relax after a hard day. Real life is full of problems, bills, stress, bad news, and our hobbies are supposed to help us forget about all that. Idealized characters, including their looks, are just a part of that fantasy. They don't have to be average looking. They don't have to look like real people. They are part of a fictional world with its own rules, stories, and aesthetics. It's just common sense for game developers to choose appealing designs. They're in the business of selling games. Of course, they want to make money, and creating characters that appeal to their predominantly male audience is one way to do that. And when those characters are not only attractive but also have great personalities, strong values, and amazing skills, their chances of becoming iconic for the video game industry are considerably high. By the way, this isn't to say that female characters are only appealing if they look like OnlyFans models. It's true, some characters like Eve from Stellar Blade or the ladies from The First Descendant have exaggerated proportions that don't really reflect real-life women that precisely. But even that is merely a design choice. Some of the most beautiful characters we've seen in the past few years are actually pretty realistic in their design. They are clearly meant to be attractive, but in a tasteful, often subtle way. Take Luna and Ciel from Expedition 33. They're not only beautiful, but also extremely well written. Their backstories, their personalities, the way their past experiences shaped who they are, it's truly top-tier character design in general. A couple of years ago, Baldur's Gate 3 was a phenomenon. The game dominated the internet landscape entirely with characters like Shadowheart, Karlach, Minthara, and even Lae'zel. It's kind of ironic that a game that let players literally sleep with anything, including a bear and a literal demon, ended up becoming one of the most respected RPGs of the decade, a masterclass on storytelling and emotional nuance. But the fact is, every single female character in the game looks absolutely amazing. Of course, you could argue that a girl like Karlach is more muscular than the average woman, sure, but none of these characters have genuinely exaggerated proportions. They're simply as attractive as their designs allow them to be. And I have to say, Karlach is my favorite, by the way. I'm a muscle mommy guy. It is what it is. Another important point is that this isn't limited to women. Baldur's Gate 3 didn't ignore its male cast. Every male companion is attractive, from Astarion to Gale to literally every dude in the camp. The same goes for my man Gustav and Verso in Expedition 33. Visual appeal isn't exclusive to female characters. It's part of good character design across the board. So, if beauty helps games sell, gets people interested, and makes characters more iconic, why is it controversial? More importantly, why are some developers deliberately creating characters that are less attractive than the actors who portray them in real life? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm 100% for creative freedom. Every studio should have the right to design characters however they want. But let's be honest, making your character look worse doesn't exactly sound like a great marketing strategy. Sure, there might be exceptions where an ugly main character makes sense, but that's not what we're seeing here. We're seeing a pattern, especially with female leads, where studios seem almost afraid to make characters too attractive. Why? The answer, whether people like it or not, is ideology. These design choices are not coming from a pure artistic vision. They are politically motivated, and the result is characters who feel less like people and more like statements, if you know what I mean. Yeah, some people see woke culture in everything, even when it's not warranted, but in this case, activism clearly plays a role, especially when it comes to character appearance. To me, The Last of Us Part 2 is an obvious example. I know some people absolutely hate when I bring up The Last of Us Part 2, which is exactly why I'm going to keep doing it. That game is supposed to be grounded, gritty, and realistic, telling a story about humans surviving in a post-apocalyptic world. It's filled with nuance, human conflict. Naturally, you would expect the characters to look like real people. Virtually no stylization or exaggeration whatsoever. Okay, then how do you explain Abby exactly? I'm sorry, but if you think Eve from Stellar Blade isn't a realistic representation of a woman, there is no way in hell you can say Abby is. She doesn't even look like a muscular woman. She looks like a man. Her design makes no sense within the creative vision of the game. And that's because it's not based on creative vision, it's based on ideology. These design choices are about subverting the kind of entertainment people actually enjoy, turning what could have been a great character into a tool for pushing a message. To some people, female beauty, especially when it's meant to please men or unapologetically appeal to quote-unquote the male gaze, is seen as oppressive. That's why the same people who criticize fictional women in games for wearing skimpy outfits are often the ones praising real women who objectify themselves on social media. Those real women are empowered, right? Because they don't need men. Meanwhile, female characters in games, who are often created by men for a male audience, represent a kind of ideal that is not just beautiful, but also virtuous, feminine, and admirable. That's what bothers these critics. As much as some people want to pretend it's not happening, this kind of cultural activism has infected gaming. We're even seeing companies like Visa and MasterCard working with activist groups to censor games on platforms like Steam. So the idea that developers are not under any pressure to design characters a certain way, that's naive. The natural result of that is mediocre games, ugly characters, forgettable experiences, all because the studios prioritized politics over creativity. But here's the good news. Gamers are not stupid. There's nothing wrong with liking beautiful characters. They are not a bug, they are a feature. When beauty is removed, not for artistic reasons, but to push an ideological agenda, it doesn't feel empowering, it feels dishonest. And gamers can tell. We all vote with our wallets, and if studios keep refusing to make games people actually want to play, they will keep losing money until eventually they shut down, just like many already have over the past few years. So yeah, my only wish as a gamer, hopefully we have a future filled with beautiful women in games for us to play. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you guys later.